keto, low carb, high carb, carnivore, intermittent fasting, the grapefruit diet. If you've thought about dieting or have even glanced at the magazine rack at the grocery checkout, you've probably recognized some of these terms. As someone who spent most of my life overweight, I remember seeing the raging war between the different communities of dieters and how it made it so much harder to navigate weight loss. Now that I've dived to the deep end of the weight loss pool and I can swim sufficiently, I can look at the communities and some of the zealots that preach our side is better and ask, what the is the confusion all about? Growing up big, I remember the phrase calories in, calories out, but it was clouded by the vibrant claims of keto, Atkins, ABC diet, whatever you want to call it. Uneducated and young, I thought that calorie counting was just another flashy diet on the same plane as all these other diets. It was either CECO, calories in, calories out, or it was keto. Not both. And while I agree that it's my own fault for not understanding or doing the research at that time, it's also because I was heavily influenced by not only the zealots of those communities, but the publicity industry with the magazines and the diet shows, and not to mention the success of the people who have done the diet that didn't track their calories, that claim and now correlate. Calories don't matter because I didn't track them and I lost fat. That's like saying that you drove your car that has a faulty gas gauge to work, and because the fuel gauge didn't move because it's broken, then you didn't use any fuel. It's like, if a tree falls in a forest and nobody's around to hear it, did it make a sound? Yeah, you use fuel, the tree makes a sound, and if you lost fat on a diet, no matter what diet, you were in a calorie deficit, even if you didn't track it, even if your fuel gauge wasn't measuring it. Unlike before when I said that CECO was on the same plane as all these other diets, I now know that it is actually the only absolute in this equation, and that it is more of the destination that all of the other diets are leading to. And you can't get there without calories in, calories out, a negative energy balance. And now that I'm more experienced, I think of these things instead of on the same plane, I think of them like tools. And different tools work better for different people. Let me explain what I mean by that. Objectively, if you were in a lab setting and all the variables of your life were controlled and they made sure that you were expending more energy than you were consuming, you would lose weight. Everybody would lose weight. Doesn't matter if it's low carb, high carb, intermittent fasting. Studies show that low carb and high carb diets equate similar weight loss when calories are the same. So if one way works the best, how the hell did all these other diets emerge? If CECO really is king, why did people feel the need to search out other alternatives? That's the question, and well, the answer is a little bit more complicated than calories in, calories out. A lot of these diets were to experiment with certain autoimmune diseases or things like Alzheimer's, heart disease, because one diet might work better for one disease and preventing that, and another might work better for a different one. There doesn't seem to be a perfect diet for everything that we know of right now. But another reason why certain diets work better for other people is perception. A lot of your life is controlled by your perception. Two people can look at the same thing and see completely different scenarios and feel two different completely feelings. Our own brains can deceive us without us even knowing. You can see that in a lot of different circumstances in life, where the brain fills in the gaps for the conscious mind, whether that's in optical illusions or in your peripherals. This extends into willpower and reasoning as well. There's a reason why the stigma for New Year's resolutioners is that they don't stick to it. Even unrelating to dieting, habits are hard to break and they make the person uncomfortable. Once you get uncomfortable, the brain looks for a way out. Whether it's a physical or a mental pursuit, when the brain gets uncomfortable, it starts to deceive itself. Let's think of these different diets as puzzle pieces. Each piece has its own individual shape and has its own place where it fits. And let's say that where it fits, its shape is determined by its pros and cons. Now let's find a dieter and see if what he prioritizes fits with those pros and cons of that diet. Because every diet has its gives and takes. No diet's perfect. There's always going to be a trade-off. But with all the different tools, surely there's going to be one that fits with his constraints. Maybe he loves to eat pasta, little pasta guy. Little noodle boy. Maybe he likes to eat pasta. The keto diet, where you lower your carbs, probably wouldn't be a good fit for him. Maybe a high carb diet would be,
he's willing to trade a little bit less volume to stay within his calorie restriction in order to have his high calorie dense pasta. What about somebody who hates cooking for themselves, but are willing to spend the extra money for a service that pre-makes their food with their calorie limit in mind? Boom, that's a diet that fits for him. The pros outweigh the cons. He's willing to do the trade-off, and boom, he's in a calorie deficit. And as far as people that don't track their calories and have success, he's none the wiser. What about a meat lover? Maybe keto would be best for this guy. Protein is the most satiating macros, so he'll subconsciously lower his intake because he's already satiated. And protein has a higher thermic effect of food, which means his metabolism is going to be a little bit higher. Without him even knowing, he might be at a calorie deficit. And what about this guy? This guy doesn't have a crazy appetite, but he loves to prioritize variety. So all these other diets might be too restrictive for him, but he's okay going a long period without eating, as long as when he does eat, he gets to eat mostly whatever he wants. Since he's limiting that window of eating to a very small amount of his day, he's most likely going to eat a lot less calories in total, which is, boom, probably a calorie deficit without these guys even knowing. And that's, I think, where you get to the point where a lot of these guys go, well, tracking calories, I don't want to do that. And you have a lot of success stories, is because these are tools to get to a calorie deficit. And with all the different people that are using these dieting tools, surely there will be some that get there without knowing about it. And then when they start telling people, you don't need to track your calories because I didn't, that's where the problem comes in, because that's just not true. With the massive amount of people in the world, it's easy to see how different diets have clouded CICO. Somewhere along the way, the claim that any of these diets could work without CICO got spewed and inflated to the point where it made everybody miss the big picture, the destination, a calorie deficit. And I think that's where we need to do better as a community, not of this diverse, segregated community of different diets, but as a community of people who want to be healthy together. Even with the massive success and popularity of a lot of these diets I mentioned, there are plenty of failures, and there are plenty of people out there who are doing keto or whatever ABC diet tool to get there, and they don't realize that you actually do need to be in a deficit. So maybe the one that they're on isn't working, or maybe they just need to be conscious of that and make a few changes. Either way, we can't be spewing the information that calories don't matter, because it is just false. It's hurting a lot of people who don't have that information. No matter what group we're in, can we all agree a deficit is required? Even if you can say, hey, listen, you need to be in a deficit, but our diet is superior to getting you into a deficit without you caring. Maybe, but I think everybody needs to share that, listen, along the way, calories in, calories out got pushed out of the way. We started believing in this hocus pocus bullshit. Let's step back. Let's enjoy our diets and our different levels of diets, but let's just preface it with, you need to be in a negative energy balance. You need to be pushing out more calories than you're pushing in. Because those people that do fail on those diets, they feel like outliers, and then they eventually give up. These are real people. These are people, and you might call them lazy, you might call them uneducated, you might call them whatever, but everybody was that at some point. Not to mention the children that are growing up without this information, and they're getting sidetracked by all the fad diets because it's clouding the big picture. I think we all need to do a better job expressing the importance of a deficit for the people who don't have the time and the willpower to shift through the BS that's convoluted the internet fitness space. If you're currently doing a diet and you plateaued and you haven't been tracking calories, maybe now is a great time to start tracking calories and lower them a little bit. Whatever works for you, whatever you'll adhere to, that's what you should do. Catch you next time. Make sure you subscribe, like. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by April. That would be pretty sick. And go buy the book. So if you want to know how to track your calories and read a nutrition table, I wrote a book. It'll explain all the parts of the nutrition table and what you should prioritize and how to go about losing weight. Good luck, and remember, be conscious of your calories.